Now, I do that because I want to get grounded and be ready for this. And the first thing I want to ask you, Ryan, since we just did that, is on a, today, where you are right now, brother, what makes every day when you wake up, what makes your heart truly sing?
Being able to help and impact other people's lives and trajectories of where they're going. Being able to pour from a cup that I filled myself,
I
right? And
like
I can
that.
go into to deeper of what that means instead of being so philosophical and obscure with it. But
Yeah.
right, when I get up in the morning, I know that I'm going to go through a series of morning rituals that fill up my cup. And those morning rituals are things like we just did, right? Meditation and reading and journaling. And I have 8 things that I do every day. And that allows me to be in such a place of what I call personal power, being able to truly then be able to use and leverage myself as I work with clients from all over the country, really all over the globe,
Yeah.
to make sure that I'm showing up as my best version of self for them. So it's
Beautiful.
that it's an end result, right? It's making sure that when I share time and space with somebody, they're getting all of me, right? I think with distractions and what goes on today, even before our interview, right? Shut off my email, made sure my phone's on do not disturb, right? Everything's just here. It's like the eternal present moment of the now is all there really ever is. But we get so, at least me, I used to get so fixated on a memory of the past or being propelled way too far forward by a vision of the future, as Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, that I missed out on what was going on right in front of me. And that's the magic of what we're creating that inevitably someone's going to listen to. And if everything goes the right way, take a nugget or two of wisdom from us.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, you said 8 steps, right? And I want to touch on those 8 steps. But first, I know part of that's meditation, right?
It is.
What is, since this is the Mindful Impact podcast, I prerequisite for any guest to come on here is they have to have some sort of a meditation, therapy, yoga practice that they're into right now that we could talk about. And I always start with that. So, what does your meditation practice look like today?
So today ends up being I meditate in a cold submersion ice chest. So if we're talking today I have a 21.6-foot deep freezer that sits in my garage in Columbus, Ohio, that is filled up with water, and the temperature of that water is 34 degrees Fahrenheit. And I step out into that in the morning, and I'll sit in there for, if everything goes the right way, 8 or 9 minutes, which scientifically would not be long enough for a mindful meditation practice, but it certainly puts me into what is the immediate now, right? You can't be anywhere else because your body is literally panicking. It wants to go everywhere else possible.
Wow.
And so I'll call it biohacking, right? Whatever, life extension. So I go back and forth between, Justin, I'm in that deep freezer, and then I have an infrared sauna in the house as well, right? So then I'll conclude the rest of my meditation in the infrared sauna, which is
Yeah.
another 15 minutes or so, right? I'm analytical by nature, and so things are pretty binary for me. So I do a lot of research, right? And
Yeah.
it's maximum efficiency with minimum input. And for meditation, every study I could find, it's somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes, depending on the individual, that there's diminishing returns after 25 minutes for most people, and you don't get nearly the return you want if you're doing less than 15 minutes.
Mm,
Meaning, right, we look at it, the left and right hemisphere of the brain, for most of us entrepreneurs, we're very left brain heavy, right? We're very analytical, we're very driven. Well, that right brain is the creative side and ends up being a boat anchor for us, right? Because it's not engaged as much. And so when you meditate, you're actually getting the neural pathways to cross regulate, to fire across the brain from side to side, which makes that boat anchor that so many of us have been dragging behind us because we're just hard charging going forward.
yeah.
It's no longer a boat anchor, right? It's just, it's flowing, it's in flow, if we'll call it, with us throughout the day. And so that's really what I'm achieving there. But I started with brain.fm was where I started, which is oscillating binaural signals in each ear.
Through sound, like just,
Yeah, through sound. So you put on just like the headphones you have on now, noise
yeah.
canceling headphones, and it's enjoyable. It's nothing. It's not. You could listen to it for a long period of time, and somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes, it pushes you into that theta state, right? That state we all crave, where you don't know if you're dreaming, you don't know if you're awake. You're like, did I meditate? Did I not? Like, where did the time go?
Yeah.
some of us again will call that flow, but it's, if we look at the brain waves, it's theta. And so brain.fm is where I started. And I'm like, okay, what can I biohack into this? And it was a Muse, right? MUSE, right? The Choose Muse, the headband that goes around the ears that physically monitors your brain waves during meditation. And I could combine those two and I could start to track and like, wow, I'm actually quote unquote getting it, right? Because my biggest fear with meditation was I'm doing it wrong, right? The self-judgment, like I'm not going to shave my head. I'm not going to wear the orange robe like the Tibetan monks. I got to be doing this wrong. And so data allowed me to see like, no, the time is going more easily. My mind is quiet and I feel rested and rejuvenated, and I'm getting more done more efficiently during my workday, which is the causality behind meditation for me, right? Like it wasn't one of those things of, oh, I need to be, for me personally, need to be more spiritually in touch. It was, how can I operate more efficiently throughout my day? How can I not have emotional responses to things that don't require emotional response? How can I be more, I love the exercise we just did to start the show. How can I be more presently seated in my seat of consciousness, or at my seat of awareness? And meditation, like over and over, meditation does that. Like, all right, well, might as well give this a shot.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I actually came up with that because last week I had a young entrepreneur. He was really cool, down to earth, and just a really smart dude. And I asked him that question, what makes your heart sing? And he stopped, closed his eyes, put his hand on his heart, took one huge deep breath, let it out. And then he goes, I felt that question, and he answered it. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I should just start that way. And that's what I'm going to start doing. And that was great. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
So 8 steps. I want, if anybody listening right now is interested in we talk about morning routine probably every 2 or 3 episodes on this. Everybody's way that they do it's a little bit different. What are the 8 things, and how long is your morning routine? Now, first off, I want to talk about the ice bath, because before I lose my train of thought, because I take cold showers.
Yeah.
And I know my water is not getting to 34 degrees.
Probably, if you're lucky, especially where you live geographically, you might be 55 or 60 degrees is that water. Probably.
In the summer, it's probably like that. In the wintertime, it does get colder.
Okay.
And actually at the gym, it gets like way colder than my house. So it is, but I know, I just know it's not 34, and I'm dying to put it all the way in just alone. So that is like, I don't know if courage is the word, if like mindset just has to be so on point when you step in there. Is that 34 degrees? Is that basically like just ice in water? Is that what the temperature gets to?
Yeah. So I actually have a timer. So it only turns on for 2 hours in the middle of the night to keep the water at 34. Okay. So it's just enough that the water almost has that really thin, crispy layer to it. You don't have to break up ice necessarily, but you're right there where the ice is present.
Damn, that's awesome.
And so for me, it's mitochondria efficiency, right? Mitochondria being the energy cells of our body, outnumber all the cells 10 to 1. But what happens for most of us, especially, current day entrepreneurs, it's blue light bombarding, it's lack of connection with nature, it's stress, it's all these things. And just like the iPhones, most of us hold in our hand. Sorry if you're an Android user, I step into the 21st century and grab an iPhone. But
the same thing.
If us iPhone users, after a period of time, the batteries just don't hold a charge as long. And all the oxidative stress, all the emotional stress, all the environmental stresses that we all carry around with us are literally like making our internal batteries, not stay as charged. And so that ice bath is one of the things that helps rejuvenate those things, because what's happening in an ice bath or the cold shower, that part of you that says, I'm going to die, I got to get out of here, right? This is miserable, I got to jump out. That's actually the mitochondria that can only be charged halfway up. It's your body's response to trying to protect those mitochondria. But what's happening is, if you can just, I'll call it outlast the suck, right? There's a part where it's just going to suck. It's the same thing to me with entrepreneurial journeys, everything we do.
Yeah.
You outlast that suck, and then all of a sudden those mitochondria die and new ones are instantly regenerated. And so now you're playing with a full battery again. It's like you don't have to wait for the new iPhone update. You can just hack your way into it with, again, vibration plates and red light therapy and infrared saunas and it could be a cryogenic chamber, or it could be, you know, a torture chamber like my deep freezer. It could be any of those things. But those are all things, of course, to make you feel very present in the moment. But I'm doing it because I want a heightened sense of energy. My my mother's side, our family has a big history of Alzheimer's, which is being now linked to inflammation on the brain.
Right.
And so anything I can do to be an anti-inflammatory agent for myself is a way I'm choosing to currently live my life. Like as you and I are chatting right now, Justin, I'm in the middle of a 72-hour water fast, which I do that once every month, where 72 hours, like, water means water. It doesn't mean water with coffee in it. It doesn't mean water with, like, no, it's for 72 hours, I just have water. And what that does, again, is does so many things internally, which I don't have to geek out too deep in the science, but there's so many things that go inside of our bodies from just the stress it takes to process our daily food. And it doesn't matter how clean you're eating. It doesn't matter if you're vegan or vegetarian or meat eater. I'll take out all those biases. Think about it logically for just one moment. We have advanced as a society so rapidly in such a short period of time. But when we were hunters and gatherers, before there were convenience stores, if there were no nuts and berries around, if there was no fruit on a tree, and if we couldn't kill something with a spear or, you know, a crossbow at some point, there would be days in which we wouldn't eat. Like, it's just natural. None of us died, right? We're here right now, so we can kind of assume that that worked out okay for us. And there's something that goes on inside your body when you just allow your digestive tract to recalibrate and take a break for a second. And for me, originally, it was a battle of will, where, man, there's such a unique relationship, especially in Western society, that we have with food. Like, half the day revolves around what I'm going to do for lunch today. What's the family doing for dinner? Like, I'm hungry. What's sitting around to eat? And when you remove that, plus the internal benefits that are going on, I'm a big fan of the 72-hour fast once a month, and then intermittent fasting throughout, you know, daily life. Like, I'm a 16 and 8 type of guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go the other way around. I'll do 18 and 6, right? Just depending.
Mm-hmm.
I just have found that my inflammatory markers inside my blood are a third of what they used to be just by eating in controlled windows. And so I don't know if it's right or wrong. I don't necessarily love those terms, what's right and what's wrong. Like, I do what serves me and what doesn't serve me.
Well, yeah, you figure out what serves you, and you're figuring out how you can personally optimize your life the way that you want to and the way that you researched, right? And know.
Correct.
And um, this is actually funny. You're talking about our relationship with food. You have kids, by the way?
I do.
They're older, right?
One 10 year, just about to be 10. She'll be 10 in 12 days.
So you went, like, I have a 4.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and their entire day revolves around snacks and snacks and snacks and lunch. So I totally understand what you're saying, especially with kids.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So that's 72 hours. By the way, I've gone close to 24 several times over the past few months, and I should just extend it longer. And it's really not that. I do have coffee, though. That's the difference. And maybe I should just try it without that. However, through my research, they were like, you can drink coffee, it's okay, and it kind of makes me get that full feeling.
100%. And I also use coffee just in a different way in the morning. So a few times a week, I give myself a coffee enema. Right, we're going to biohack the living daylights out of this episode. So
I had no idea that we're going to go this way, but I kind of like it. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I'm an open book, my friend. So, right, you look at the master antioxidant in all of our body is glutathione, and glutathione is an antioxidant, is naturally produced and is released from, we'll just say our intestines, to make it easy. And what happens is when you it's got to be natural, right? Fresh ground, right? Organic, healthy coffee.
Okay.
So it's I take 24 ounces, so four tablespoons of coffee in 24 ounces of water. Then I put another 24 ounces of cold water, so a total of 48 ounces.
Okay.
I lay on the bathroom floor. There's this bucket, this silver stainless steel bucket that sits up above me with 48 ounces of liquid in there. I lay on my side and slowly insert a tube somewhere where normal things don't go in, right? I haven't experimented putting many things back there, and certainly this was a new endeavor for me not that long ago.
Interesting.
And then you open up a release valve, and the 48 ounces of fluid slowly comes into your rectum.
Sure.
And then the bucket, you can tell that it's empty because the little clear tube, there's no more liquid flowing through it. So you take the tube out. Then the goal is to lay there on the floor essentially for 15 or 20 minutes. And it starts to feel uncomfortable, right? Essentially, like you know you have to go to the bathroom. There's more capacity inside of you than one should have. And what happens when you relieve yourself, it's taking all the, like, everything that's been inside of you, right? The stuff, certainly when we defecate, there's things that come out, but it's not everything that comes out.
Yeah.
First time you do this, it's all on the table. Like it's all coming out. Everything, it's a very different look to what comes out. But from that standpoint, when your body is empty in that capacity, it instantly triggers the glutathione dump. It's called, no pun intended,
Yeah.
where your body's just releasing this master antioxidant, and you get this incredible endorphin rush. It feels like, right? Your dopamine receptors go off the charts, your serotonin receptors are up, and so you get this euphoric high with immense energy. But what's really happening is your body is clean, right? Everything's cleaned out, all the junk is gone. So, Justin, I do one of those probably every third day. I'd love to say it's religiously that way, but certainly at least twice a week.
Wow. And what's the coffee? Why coffee? What does that do? I know you researched it. What does that have to
Yeah,
do
so
with
there's different substances to put back there.
it? Okay.
There's coffee just happens to be one with the natural fibrous tendencies of coffee, right? I think most people would say if you drink a cup of coffee, we can call it a laxative more so than fibrous, that most people will use the restroom
Oh yeah.
an hour or two after a cup of coffee.
Okay.
Well, you're just choosing to do that in a different way, right? So it's cleaning everything out, but instead of having to go all the way through the entire GI system, you're starting at the backside and coming up instead of going down.
Wow. I've never. I'm shocked. Right. I've never heard of an at home enema like that. I mean,
It's on
honestly, like,
Amazon, brother. It's cheap too. It's like a $20. It's nothing, right?
yeah.
It's a stainless steel receptacle with a clear tube.
Cool. I mean, I am 100% open to going to, the doctor and getting them done. And I've researched it, but I've never heard of an at-home one. That's interesting. I've also haven't talked to anybody that has the ice bath in their house. Now the infrared, we'll get to that now.
Yeah,
So we'll just go from one thing to the next because this is pretty cool stuff. The infrared, is that part of inflammation too?
it is. It is. So
Okay.
I have. I'm not a paid spokesperson. It just happens to be the unit that I use is a Joovv, JOOVV,
Okay.
and it's
I've almost pressed purchase like 3 times on on a infrared light. I was
Yep.
with me and my wife. We wanted to get one. I just never have.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. Living in Columbus, Ohio, this time of year, we'll start with the seasonal depression type of things, right? It's gray
Mm,
here from pretty much now until March. Our bodies need a certain amount of red light exposure, right? I think back when there was campfires, we would have red light that was being emitted from the campfire. So it's a natural, right, calming agent. It does a lot of things subconsciously to us. So that is certainly a part of it. But more importantly, it actually helps mobilize fat cells. It helps increase collagen production. It helps increase mitochondria efficiency, again, killing off those dead battery cells. But it's one of the things that is a little unique is you have to stand close to it. When I see people online and, right, the red light is all the way across the room, the effective range of red light right now for most at-home units is only 4 to 6 inches. So you have
ah,
to stand pretty close to it. But right, just I don't know if you can see it. I have one behind me here
oh,
in the office.
okay.
I've got another one, small one on the desk, right, where I'll put it on my face in the middle of the day. And then I have the big Elite stand-up unit at home, right? So it's a 6-panel. So I stand 15 minutes in the morning. Actually, as I'm reading, right, as I look at what I do in my morning rituals, I stand in front of the Joovv unit and I'm reading my book. And so that's kind of
Oh.
combining some of those things instead of just sitting there. I'm getting the healthy effects of red light.
Are you standing there? Are you standing there completely naked reading your book?
I am.
Ah, okay.
100% butt naked.
Full vulnerability. We're naked. We're reading books and we're getting infrared light. I love it.
We are, but if you wanted some crazy research, obviously we weren't supposed to wear clothes necessarily either. So as men, as we age, our testosterone production decreases after age 27 or 28. If we were to spend more time outside in the sun with natural sunlight hitting our testicles, our testosterone would not decrease. It decrease half as rapidly as it does. The red light does the same thing, right? So standing in front of it, in all God's glory, if you will, allowing the sun to shine places maybe it shouldn't, is increasing, right, erectile function. It's increasing blood flow.
Wow.
It's increasing testosterone production.
All right. Well, we'll have to look at. I think I might have to press that purchase button now. That's
For
great.
sure.
Especially Christmas is here. It's a nice gift to give ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's Cyber Monday. They got to be on sale.
I didn't know. See, I was going to get into something completely different, right? I didn't realize you were into so much, I guess biohacking, right? That's the category this is, kind of life hack.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
so
know.
I call it life optimization,
Life
right? Because
optimization.
really what's crazy is with all the biohacking movement, it's just taking our bodies back to the evolutionary step they're actually located, right? Like I wear uh, barefoot shoes, they're called on a daily basis,
Yeah.
because our bodies need to connect with the earth. And I have really flat, wide feet. So regular shoes were causing misalignments with my back, my hips, my knees. And so I found shoes that they're literally just like essentially socks with rubber on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's completely changed the way I train, the energy I have throughout the day. Like everything feels better. They look goofy because you see all 5 of your toes. Like people look at you like you're an alien, but I kind of stopped caring because that's our feet weren't meant to be bound up like that, right? They're not supposed to be in shoes. You take red light, fires would have red light on. We're supposed to have that blue light in the morning. So I have something called a biocharger that goes in your ear, both ears, and it exposes blue light into your brain essentially, because as the sun's rising in the morning, after it gets above, higher in the sky, you have that window from sunrise 2 hours after that, where
Mhm.
there's more blue light coming off the sun than there is any other color. And so blue light's actually your body's response to wake itself up. But what happens is for most of us, especially entrepreneurs, right, we're using our computer, we're using our phone at night, and those are actually blue light that is a negative blue light, because the blue light should be in the morning, right,
Yeah.
to help our circadian rhythm. So we're
Okay. Yeah.
knocking ourselves out of rhythm, and then we're not sleeping. And then when we don't sleep, all of our hormones get out of whack, and then we gain more fat, and our testosterone and estrogen get out of balance. It's really a pretty vicious cycle that's really quick and easy to get off of, right? So even the life optimization, as I call it, someone is just think like, what would a caveman do?
Well, yeah, that
Like,
makes sense because like you said, we've evolved so quickly and we lost touch with those natural things that we as humans were supposed to get. Like we probably should still be getting those. Well, we not even probably, we should, right?
yeah,
Because we've evolved too fast, like crazily fast. Something really interesting. I'm going to try to explain it the best way possible, and it's quick, but they were talking about, I read or heard in a podcast or read somewhere that if the world became extinct, right, the humans just gone and we got buried under ashes and ashes, whatever, and the aliens came down later, years later, and they uncovered a book that somebody wrote about the history of humans, right? And when did human history start? What year? How many years ago? I couldn't even tell you. So let's just say, I don't know. So every so often, the amount of pages equaled a certain amount of years, right? So let's say the book was 300 pages, and every so often, every 100 years was 300 pages. Anyway, the first 9/10 of the book, the alien would be reading, and it would be super boring. Like just, caveman, right? We're doing this. Oh, we discovered the wheel, maybe all these things. And then all of a sudden they get on and be like, man, this book's boring. The very last page, the last half of the last page would be so intense and so crazy and so nuts that his brain was exploding. We'd go, oh my God, I can't believe all this happened. Where's the rest of it? And that's how fast we've changed and we've evolved over the course of time lately. So yeah, this totally makes sense. Everything you're saying. Does that
yeah,
make sense, by the way? Explain that, by the way.
100%.
Okay. I've never said it out loud before, so I was wondering. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Well, so what is, when you're on that 72-hour fast, I have a question. Do you
Mhm.
still train the same?
I do. And there's conflicting sources around that as far as what's appropriate and what's not. I
Okay.
fully realize that I operate on the extreme sides of the spectrum, right? Just it's how I live my life. What I know is if I can diminish and deplete glycogen storage, right? The stored carbohydrates that are inside of our muscle and as well as our liver, the quicker I can deplete those, the quicker I can turn on true ketosis, this is not a keto diet conversation. This isn't anything like that. This is tapping into that additional energy that I need throughout the day. And so the first day, I absolutely train the same. The second day, I can tell that my training is decreased, right? My load, my capacity, my energy. And by the third day, it's a lot more of kind of going through the motion, right? It's not as intense. Certainly, there's no sort of muscle volumization. There's no pump. There's no anything like that.
Okay.
Because there's nothing inside your muscles to really do that anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I would encourage anyone that's considering doing it, don't do it for fat loss, don't do it for anything like that, because it's all superficial. Like, I walk around at 265 pounds as I sit most days. I'll drop down to 250 in 3 days, right? Because I have enough muscle mass and I'm carrying that much, like, there's that many carbohydrates stored inside my body.
Yeah.
Well, the minute I start to eat carbs again, most of that weight comes back, right? But I can be more selective, because let's be real, none of us, at least I don't, adhere to the strictest diet possible, right? I enjoy having things with my family and going out to eat. But really, my body, I'm an O positive blood type, and I truly believe in Dr. Peter D'Adamo's work in eating for your blood type. Whereas an O positive, I'm a red meat and root vegetables type of guy. And so that means potatoes are great for me, but French fries aren't, because they're fried in oil. Well,
Right.
I love French fries, so it's not like I'm not going to eat them. But what that's doing is it's turning on all the inflammatory markers in my body. It just gives us that chance to slowly reintroduce food in a more intellectual manner.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I think I might have to try that soon. 265. How tall are you, Ryan?
6'1", maybe 6'2".
Yeah. Did you play? I feel like you should be on a football field somewhere at that size, dude.
Well, I mean, I was an amateur bodybuilder for a long time.
Yeah.
And if there is an anabolic steroid that could have existed on the planet, I certainly have taken it for long periods of time, up until about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. I gave it all up. But I used to walk around, Justin, at 305, and you could see abs still. Not that I wasn't like ripped at 305, but it wasn't like I was a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man either, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in between. So it's funny, in my mind, I feel so small, like that cognitive distortion that goes on of how we view life through the lens of our own eyes is so extreme, right? Because I'm looking at myself, I'm like, man, I was 40 pounds heavier. I feel like just a little kid. And then I stand next to most people, and right, like, a 200-pound man is a pretty decent sized man, like 205, and I'm a small child larger than that individual.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And a lot of muscle too, for people that aren't watching but instead listening. So just to give you an idea, that's great. So I'm going to take a little shift in our conversation here. We're talking about optimizing life. Ryan is a life coach. You could say, I know that name has, connotations here and there, different ways people view it, but yeah, it's what it is. And I wanted to ask you, like, what made you decide? I have a couple questions about that, but what made you decide to become a life coach?
Oh gosh, that's a great question, Justin. What's funny is I'll spit back a rap line that I didn't choose this life; it chose me.
Okay. Okay. Who
I
said that?
I don't remember which artist.
Probably Biggie or Tupac.
Yeah, it's got to be, right. One of the greats.
Yeah.
So I have my own podcast that I started March of 2018. And as I started that podcast, it was literally just me telling the stories of the things that I was tired of carrying around, right? Eliminating the shame and guilt that I'd carried. And that shame and guilt is that, right, everybody wants to put out their highlight reel. And I wanted to do different things in life, but I was always so afraid that a past bad decision would come up and it would somehow diminish my value. And so I started literally in a daily episode just talking about, oh, here's every relationship I've ever been unfaithful in. Oh, and by the way, it's every relationship I've ever had. And here's all the lies I've told. And here's all the anabolics. And here's, name something, and it's all there. And it's all there, right? The tears of losing my best friend to a opioid. He was addicted to heroin for different reasons back at a different time in life. And he did some cocaine that was laced with fentanyl, and he died, and like literally put my life in a whole different side spin. Like, there's tears on there, there's everything, right? It's not filtered, it's never been edited, and it won't be. And after about 120 episodes, I literally just put out just like you and I are having a conversation, I said, hey, I've been through some things. I've shared very openly who my coaches and mentors are. if there's something I can help you with, I probably have enough time on my calendar, my schedule to maybe work with 6 or 7 people. If you're interested, just shoot me an email, gave them my personal email address, right? Kind of the whole deal. Had no idea that anybody was going to care, right? Literally, like you get in the podcast world, you get some reviews, you get some comments, but like you don't really know. It's not a super interactive platform.
Totally.
And by the time all the dust settled, I had somewhere between 12 and 1,400 people email me.
What?
And I'm like, okay. Because here, I'm from the direct response marketing world. I'm from the offer creation space and, right, a whole different life, which I was admittedly miserably tired of and didn't enjoy any part of it anymore. And so I started having conversation with these people saying, look, I don't know if I'm qualified to help you other than what you've heard on the show. Like I'm an avid reader. I read tons of books all the time. I share very openly my life experiences. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed counselor. I don't have some fancy plaque on my wall, but here's how I've lived my life. If I can help you, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
As that turned into a really thriving business, right? Where in the fourth quarter of last year, I ended up having 35 clients that were one-to-one with me, all an hour and a half a week.
Wow.
All had made a large investment in themselves
Yeah.
to get some of the stuff that I'm covering on the show. Like, how do you optimize the human experience? How do you do the things that increase capacity, right? Especially, I'll speak to the men that are tuning in right now. Not that it couldn't adhere to women as well, but I literally looked at my life as though I was essentially a dick with an ATM, right? I was going to work really hard. And when I worked really hard, I became more successful because I could buy a different watch or a different car or a different house. And as long as I was working hard and as long as there was money coming in, then my girlfriend and or wife would be happy, right? That was kind of like the circle. And I went to the gym because you're supposed to go to the gym. Admittedly, back in those times, I was going to the gym to pick up more chicks. It wasn't just to work out, right? It was kind of a hybrid of both. But I had no sort of spiritual component. I didn't have a way to connect to something bigger. I didn't have a meaning of what family really was. I didn't have family even on the totem pole. So started really recalibrating and shifting my beliefs to have it be, right, that there's 4 key components to life. It's fitness, faith, family, and finance. And literally every decision we make every day fits in one of those 4 buckets. And so most men, right, we dump all of our water. I'm sitting here in the studio with a gallon of water. We'll put a gallon of water in the finance bucket, meaning what we do for a living. Like we're hard charging, we're gun ho. That's what it is. And if there's a little water left, we might sprinkle some in the fitness category, right? But we're still drinking beer on the weekend. Maybe you're smoking pot. Maybe you're eating fried foods. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is not a judgmental place. It's just that was my story, right? I had been that guy. And then you shift, and it's like, well, what if I took this gallon, and what if I just could always go back to the spigot and fill it up more? And what if I could decide every day, like, what if I just poured some into each bucket at the same time? And when I needed some in reserve, I could pour some extra in the finance bucket because I'd built up enough goodwill in myself instead of looking to external pieces for validation. I built up enough goodwill in myself to know that, okay, I can call my family and say, look, I know we have family dinner to plan tonight, but there's this really important work thing and I'm putting work in front of our family tonight, but I need that to be okay. And for them to say it's okay, right? To say it's good and to not have to feel the shame and the guilt.
Right.
And it works really well. And so you take apart all these things. We get the 35 one-to-one clients and the growth throughout the business and tying into, again, right, Justin, some of it, I've had some successes in business and some failures in business. I've sold a couple companies. I've burned some stuff to the ground and went bankrupt before. And so I get to see things from a unique perspective of both sides, right? Like I'm not the next Warren Buffett. I don't claim to be, but what I do claim to know is from all the stuff I've been through. And so the life coach, it used to really turn me off. Like, oh, what is a life coach? Like everybody's a life coach. Yeah, kind of, right? I think every one of us, all of us, including I'm still being coached now. We need a map. We need a mentorship. We need accountability, and we need a plan. And if you don't have that, you're still going to be successful, right? If you're driven, if you're self-motivated, you're still going to find success.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no new original idea left. You might as well find the person that has went bankrupt, right? That has made all the bad decisions, that has went down the infidelity path, and figure out how not to do the same dumbass stuff he did. Like, you learn from my mistakes, which is how that all came about, which then spun into helping other coaches also
Yeah. Now
figure out
I
how to
see.
tell their story and how to leverage that. Because right now, from media guys like you and I have been or are, I built the current company with no ad spend. I haven't spent a dollar on ads, and
Wow.
have really knocking on the door of 6 figures a month in revenue. And right, revenue and income, just in case you're not familiar, they are not the same thing in the business world. But to do that without any sort of ad spend, and then to have other coaches starting to replicate it, the process just works, right? It's just being yourself. It's not, as much as I love Russell Brunson for what he's created, you're not one funnel away as you listen to this. Like, whatever the thing is you want to do in life, you're not one funnel away from doing it. Like, it's just not
Yeah.
how it works. But that's what's
There's a
wrong.
process behind all of it, right? Like you said, there's a
Big
process to
process.
bring that out.
Yes. Huge process.
Yeah. And then you can become one funnel away.
Yeah. After testing, after split testing, after ad testing. Yeah. After all the things. But that is so appropriate for how I believe we should live life. Like, I will share with a client, just like I'm sharing with you right now as you're listening,
Yeah.
the ice bath. Well, it didn't start at the ice bath. It started with cold showers and me hating cold showers. And that came to me from Wim Hof, right?
Yeah. Wim
WIMHOF.
Hof. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And
That's
his
where I
breathing.
started.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And then I see he's got all these retreats. And I'm like, yeah, I'm too cheap to fly somewhere to go sit in an ice bath. What if I just found a used chest from Facebook Marketplace for $450? It's like 20 years old. Can I make one myself? Yeah, that makes sense. Right. And so I did that and learned about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this for a while. And then who knows what'll be next, right? Like, it's like
Yeah.
I don't claim to have quote unquote it all figured out, which is one of the things I think is wrong with the life coaching world. I know exactly what I've been through up until this moment. I know every book I've read. I know every coach I've paid. I know every bad and good decision I've made,
Yeah.
but that's it. And there's like, I haven't even seen a third of what, an 18th, a 200th of what I'm going to see in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And so even what I train and teach people on, if I were to work with somebody again now that was a year and a half ago, I'm different. It's not the same. It's not the same course. It's not the same time. It's not the same answers,
I like
because it
that.
shouldn't be. Like, that's all of us. It's great to have a framework to go off of, but I think it's right. If you look at, I'm a big believer in psychedelics too, right? We can go all the way down this rabbit hole, but like, you look at during a psychedelic session, whether it's mushrooms or ayahuasca or anything on those lines, you start to see the patterns that exist inside of life, right? And the only finite pattern is the infinite pattern that everything is always in motion. But yet, as human beings, we think that we're supposed to stay in one place for a long time. Like, okay, I learned this thing, I'm going to plant my flag in the ground. Like, this is the absolute truth. That doesn't make any sense. Like, everything is always in motion all around us all the time. And so your ideas should be in motion. You should practice more fluidity, right? Like, to challenge the belief systems of what people tell you to be real. Like, I hope that you attack everything I just said on here as you're listening and bombard the living daylights out of Justin saying, that guy's a complete quack and a fraud. I found 6 articles that say everything he said was wrong. That means you're expanding your capacity. Like, beautiful. Like, that is what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion. Like, that's the stuff that gets me fired up, is not the ivory tower. Like, oh, he's not just another life coach. No, like, I'm someone that likes to learn and likes to share information.
That's a great way to put it. Someone likes to learn, share information. That's really good. Can I ask you this question? What's one of the biggest challenges that you helped one of your clients with? If you could.
Yeah. So two come to mind. One had been a man that spoke very close to my heart. So he was a heroin addict at a younger age, and he had been on Suboxone, right? Which, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Suboxone is kind of like the bridge to stay off of opioids. So it's a prescribed medication that mirrors the effects. It's just as addictive as an opioid, right? It's quote unquote not as bad because a doctor prescribes it. I don't understand really how all that logic works, but nonetheless, that's a logic that was there. And over a 14-week period, we got him completely off of all Suboxone, which then put his marriage in a much better place and got him 2 raises inside of his job. Now, he was not a elite level producer. I think that's one of the other things that goes into it, right? People assume that, you can only afford coaching if you have a lot of money. He was a regular quote unquote guy, right? blue collar, hard worker, or metal fabricating type of guy, engineer.
Mhm.
And so that was a big
Wow.
success, is to see that and then check on him. Gosh, our time ended in January of this year. So I checked in on him last month, and he's still clean and sober, and still he's since started his own business and went on his own, and his marriage and his kids are dialed in the right way.
Look at that. And I love that's I'm glad I asked you that question, because that was for people listening to this. I'm assuming that you didn't talk to him and focus on getting a raise. You didn't focus on making the relationship instantly with his wife better. You focus first on himself,
Oh,
right? And
100%.
yeah, and then everything else you talked about, you said it several times in this podcast, flow. And then everything else starts to flow, and then the universe speaks to you in a more positive, more loving way when you figure yourself out and you become your truest self. And that's what I wanted to point out, because that all other things happen once you start there, right?
No, absolutely. And this goes back to the conversation with, to me specifically, men, but I've plenty of women clients as well, where we think that money is going to solve the thing. Well, what we're solving for is actually, to start with, in my modality, the way that I would work with someone is to ensure the fact that they have realized the trauma that they've been carrying around for themselves and the patterns that have existed based off that trauma. And trauma has this really nebulous term. And you could have, as you're listening, your mother and father could be still married. You could have never been hit before. You could have never seen anything bad happen in your life. But when you were 7 years old, all you wanted was a Barney dinosaur cake. And somehow the cake maker messed it up and gave you Big Bird. Misunderstood it. And that was a traumatic experience for your belief in something at that moment.
Mhm.
And so what happens is there's been decisions that you make as an adult that psychology has proven you're just running that pattern again and again in the background. It's like having a bunch of open windows on the back of your browser. They're not bothering you right now. They're not up in your face, but they're slowing down the processing power of the computer you're using. And so what we do is we start to peel apart those layers. Where I've been really fortunate to get to come across, not to come across, they reach out to me, the head of neuroplasticity for Johns Hopkins and the head of psychology for Harvard. And we together, the three of us, designed called the life optimization test, where I can see what's going on behind someone's eyes, right, in a non-judgmental way, but and then based off of how they process their emotions and how many questions I ask and just some things, I can start to pinpoint down and say, okay, well, Justin, I don't know what will happen, but from 7 to 9 years old, your developmental path took a curve. And I'm not saying it was good or bad, it just took a curve. What went on when you were 7 to 9? And so what happens is now the life coaching space, as I'm holding up air quotes, is something that you can now quantify, because I can show that you took an assessment now and you took it at the end of our time together, and the key performance indicators for success will have increased. And so it's easy, right? Justin, you and I think, from being business owners, can sit in front of almost anybody and come up with 12 different ways for them to make money tomorrow, right?
Right.
And it doesn't matter. Like, me personally, I've made ridiculous money at different points in my life. And guess what I did? I fucking blew it all because I was trying to mask insecurities I had in myself, right? Another private plane somewhere, another $40,000-$50,000 bar tab. And as you're listening, that might sound excessive, because it was. Like, there were so many things that I was trapped in internal conflict and turmoil, that all I was looking for was that life raft of somebody to say, like, slow down, big guy, like, you're in pain right now. Another diamond studded watch isn't going to make you any more happy than the other 3 that you have. But I couldn't hear it because it was that momentary dopamine dump of like, okay, I worked really hard. I have enough money. I'm buying this thing. It's going to make me feel better. And you might have experienced that yourself as you're listening. You get that momentary lift, right? You feel really good. You take it out, you put the watch on your wrist, or you buy the car, or you take the vacation. Then 3 days later, you're like, well, what's next?
What's next?
And how much better could life be for you if you stop having to ask what was next and you realize, like, you have it now. Like, it's all there right now. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a capitalist. Like, my goal is to have this company be very, very large and very successful, because that means I get to impact and help a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
The byproduct of that, of course, is money, because money to me is just an exchange of energy now. If I pour in energy and I pour in my love and my heart and my soul to you, I'm going to get some of that back from you, but it's also going to take some monetary exchange of energy to make that happen.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, I know both you and I, Justin, we've had a plethora of roller coasters to ride on as it pertains to income. And man, it's who was it? Jim Carrey. Somebody said that he wished everybody could see what it was like to be a multimillionaire or be a movie star, because then you wouldn't put as much value on money.
Yeah.
It's easy to say when you have a little bit sitting around, but man, I've been flat broke before. Like, not 6 years ago. Like, when I say flat broke, truck repossessed, rental properties in foreclosure. Like, I was a guy that had 4 or 5 cars at all times, like big cars, like stuff that I loved. I've always been a car guy.
Yeah.
And as my truck is getting repossessed, my F-250 Platinum diesel crew cab, like all the way loaded truck, the last car I have, because I haven't made a payment on it because I don't have any money, I'm down to $2,500 in my bank account. I don't have any credit cards left. Everything's gone. And I don't have a car. And so I go out and buy a $1,500 1998 Cadillac Sedan DeVille that was gold, right? Old people gold with tan leather.
Yeah.
With like 200,000 miles on it. And that's what I drove for a long time. Like, this is 6 years ago. This isn't 6 lifetimes ago, or,
right.
Oh, there's this thing. Like, life can be completely different in 6 weeks, let alone 6 years.
Right.
So it's not just money.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, everything you just explained and talked about, I've mentioned a few times on this podcast about myself. I mean, you were explaining me in a nutshell for 95% of that stuff. So I completely understand what you're talking about. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that, or at least some people listening, that understand that too. And yeah, I mean, money is a funny thing. And I've actually been researching like how it's affected me in my past. And I actually have on pause right now deep 20-minute meditation to figure out what my true relationship is with money. And I just came across it like 3 days ago through my research, and I just haven't done it yet. But have you done anything like that before?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
okay.
Brother, I grew up in a middle-class family where my father will still say today, like, prepare for the worst. So then you're always set and you're always like, live way below your means. It's not that I don't agree with that, but it puts such a scarcity relationship into what money is that when you have it in such abundance, it's like your brain circuitry goes haywire, because right here I am in my peak in previous businesses, and I was maybe a $150,000 to $200,000 a year earner working. I was running luxury car dealerships at that point. Good income, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, you live very well with that. Then all of a sudden you figure out digital marketing and direct response and all the stuff that goes there. It's like $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 months.
Right.
And I'm like, and I'm not working hard at all. Like, I'm having conversations with really funny people, traveling around the country, doing not really that much hard work at all. And like, money is just falling. I'm like, this is great. All bets are off. Well, it's because of that relationship with money that we're just pattern. The more and more research I've done, and the more I get to hang out with really brilliant people, we're just advanced pattern recognition creatures. We're not supercomputers. We're just pattern. Like, over and over again, sure, we might have some sophisticated software to figure out the patterns, but if you can figure out where a pattern originated from in your life, and you can rewire the story around that original pattern, everything can change in the present moment, and everything will exponentially change in the future.
Yeah, I love that. That was good. That was a good nugget right there. I'm gonna write that one down. Well, I guess, I mean, we've been, this was a good talk here. I really appreciate everything you shared, Ryan. Thanks for coming on. The last question I want to ask you is, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself some advice or tell yourself something, what would it be?
Easier said than done, but it would be to not give a fuck what anybody else thinks. Because at the end of the day, the handful of people that are going to be around for the long term are small, right? I think about the people that I was around when I was 18 or 19. Maybe some of my own doing, maybe some of theirs, maybe some of just the universe. None of them are in my life right now. But in the moment, it mattered so much. The judgment and the fear and the shame and the guilt that could exist by stepping outside of the societal norms. It just shouldn't have, right? It's very easy to say that and not have any practical application behind it. But all along this journey, like, to be a life coach, like, the people that were closest to me when I came out of the closet as a life coach, whatever that is. Like, they literally ridiculed me to no end. They like, you're not qualified, you don't have a degree. Like, my wife's parents are like, what are you doing? Like, you can't give anybody advice. And it almost stopped me. Like, here I am thinking a year ago, more than that, but about a year ago, like, man, they're probably right. I probably just shouldn't do this. And here I am with 150 or 200 people that I've had the distinct privilege of walking side by side with and seeing them achieve something greater. And like, had I not honored myself and had I let somebody else's perception of what reality could be alter my perception, I wouldn't have got to do that. Right. I was still would have been slinging CBD and traffic networks, doing all types of crazy stuff.
Well, I appreciate it. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on, man. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
All right, so the recording will stop now. Dude, that was great, man.
Thanks, buddy.
It was cool just because it was just like info and, it was just a lot of good nuggets. It wasn't a lot of fluff, which was nice. You're good at that.
I've had an interview or two before.
I had no idea we're getting into the biohacking stuff. I didn't know you were into that as much. And I actually like that. There's one thing that you can't biohack that I've learned is sleep. Is that true?
So there's ways to make sleep more efficient.
Right.
Like by blackout shades, by turning the temperature in your bedroom down to 66, 67 degrees, by shutting off blue light, by having all LEDs all be removed from your bedroom. There's things that you can do. So I track it I have an Aura ring.
Yeah.
And I wear a Whoop, right? The fitness band. I do both.
Okay.
And so I can see I'm able to get more quality sleep in a shorter period. Now, I do believe I'll sleep 6.5, 7 hours a night.
Yeah.
But our sleep cycles are 90 minutes. And so what we're trying to do is get the deepest and most REM sleep possible during that 90 minutes. And to be super efficient with adjusting, it's about 30% of your total sleep. If you're like really pretty well crushing it. And I have not mastered that at all, but I'm like 25%. Wow.
And your ring tells you that.
It does. Wow. So it tells me heart rate variability. It tells me deep sleep. It tells me REM sleep. OURA is the Aura ring.
Yeah.
And
I've heard of them.
Yeah. It just helps. Again, I'm a science guy, right? I'm an engineer by trade. So if I can't track it, then it doesn't really count for me. So I have to be able to see things with the way my brain works.
I see.
And so I can just see like, oh, I've recovered really well the past 5 days. What's different? Well, I haven't eaten any shit food. I'm practicing my breathing throughout the day. I'm making sure I'm super hydrated with at least a gallon of water. There's no blue light at night. Okay, let me try something different. Let me have Chipotle every day for lunch for the next week, and let me drink no water and see what happens. It's like, oh, my recovery is not as good. My sleep is not as good. Why is that? Because we need to be hydrated, and the rice and I know my own body enough to know now what it is. That's one of the things that kills me in this biohacking space. Man, it's just not one size fits all. There's not a playbook. There's not like a master handbook where it's like how to run Facebook ads. Like, it's not really like that, because our bodies are so complex that every 72 hours they're doing everything they can to reach homeostasis. So like what worked 3 days ago for you to lose weight or get an emotional stimulus is not going to work the same way, because your bodies all of ours are designed to protect us and stay safe. And so stimulus, our body becomes adapt to it. And so you have to always have kind of your like just one leg out the door, right? You always have to be looking for what's next, kind of. That's why it's like keto doesn't work for everybody, and paleo doesn't work for everybody, and being a vegan doesn't work for everybody. Not that it can't work for some, and not that it couldn't be used incrementally.
Right.
But broad statements in anything in life to me are a really damning thing. Like,
I agree.
Even if we look at religion, like all the way down, if you're just like, this is the way, how do you know that? Like, how can you tell me like being a vegan is the way to go? It's wrong to eat meat. Really? Why?